Started first. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the COVID vaccine information session presented by Reach Up, We Care, and the Hillsborough County Urban League. We're so excited you decided to join us tonight. And I am Shalina Henry. I am an advisory board member on the Urban League of Hillsborough County, and I'm also the Group Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at Bloom & Brands Incorporated. So really excited to be your MC tonight. But before I get started, I'm going to ask Mr. Morgan to share a video with you just to give you a little snapshot of the work we do at the Urban League. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. You can go to slides. All right, so hopefully that gives you a snapshot, but just to make it even more clear for you, who we are at the Urban League and our mission, it's all centered around serving the Black community in particular, but you'll see that those 5 key actions that we want to take fit into this bucket of our programs and focus. So many of you may have heard of the Urban League in the past. Here in Hillsborough County, our mission is to bring about and assist with the attainment of economic equity for the African American and minority communities of Hillsborough County through hands up, not hands out, and collaborative means. So we have 5 key areas that we're focused on: education, housing, health awareness, judicial and legal services, and employment. And so that is why this conversation around health awareness, both proactive medical awareness, mental, dental, and physical assessments is important, because we know that the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our community in such a significant way. So we're excited that you decided to join us, but we encourage you to check out our website, ulhc.org, or any of our social media channels, Facebook and Instagram, if you want to learn more and become a part of the work that we do. So before we begin, I want to acknowledge our sponsors. We have a few. And why do you care about that? Because we're going to be giving away some fantastic prizes provided by our sponsors tonight. And the very first is going to come from Justin's Pizza. And it's a family meal deal that will be awarded to the first person who registered for tonight's event. And that person is, drum roll please, Elizabeth Watts. So Elizabeth, Mr. Chris Butler will be reaching out to you in the chat, and he will be coordinating getting you your fantastic prize to Justin's Pizza. But I encourage you all to stay engaged and stay in tune to tonight's programming, because there will be more fabulous giveaways as we proceed. So before we give away Bloom & Brands $50 dining card, we are going to kick off the conversation with our speakers. So I want to just start by saying thank you to the team at Reach Up, We Care, USF, because it's been a pleasure working with you to prepare for this. And I definitely feel like I've gained a new sister after meeting Dr. Angela Hill. And I'm excited for you all to hear from her tonight. She will be bringing up our featured speaker, Dr. Kevin Snead. But I want to tell you a little bit about Angela before we begin. So like some of you on the phone, she is an alum of an HBCU, so I'm sure she'll share some of her HBCU pride, but she's a tenured professor, associate dean of clinical practice, and a past chair of the USF Taneha College of Pharmacy. Dr. Hill received her Doctor of Pharmacy degree from Florida A&M University. So she is extremely accomplished. I could not go through all of the accomplishments that she has. But what I will tell you, and why it's pertinent to this conversation, is one of her duties is the Associate Dean of Clinical Affairs. And that includes her serving as the project manager for We Care, a community-based participatory research entity within the College of Pharmacy, where she coordinates activities within the community to recruit, retain, and educate minorities on research participation. She has labored right alongside with Dr. Snead in providing and coordinating the workshops and other presentations related to the management, vaccination, and research related to the COVID infection, and has presented several presentations to pharmacy and community audiences about the mental health and neurological aspects of the pandemic. Lastly, Dr. Hill is coordinating and providing monthly educational workshops pertaining to COVID care for the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, which is based in Lagos, Nigeria. So without any further ado, I would like for you to meet my new sister, Dr. Angela Hill, who will get us started in the conversation and introduce our featured speaker, Dr. Kevin Snead.
Well, thank you so much, Shalina, for that introduction. It is such a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. And certainly I would like to take privilege first, though, and introduce the rest of our team. You commented on Dr. Deborah Austin and Mr. Michael Morgan, who are representing Reach Up this evening. And if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we're doing. They are our primary community partner. And so we like to first just thank them for always allowing us to have a face in the community. They are just wonderful to work with. We also have Mr. Hiram Green this evening. He's on the call, and he is our community outreach person for both the college and USF Health. He's a USF alum and well known in the Tampa Bay community. And again, he's an essential part of our team. And then last but not least, I'd like to introduce Dr. Snead. But before I introduce him, I wanted to let you all appreciate a little bit more about We Care and to understand why it's such a pleasure to work alongside the Urban League this evening so that we can share some insights as it relates to COVID care. So as she mentioned while I'm sharing the screen, as she mentioned, We Care is a part of the Tunisia College of Pharmacy. And what we have done is primarily provided ourselves or made ourselves available to be a resource for the community. So we want you to watch our video also. Hopefully you can hear it. Can you hear? Okay.
So why do we care? Why we care? Why this program? We want to improve health outcomes.
The collaboration between USF Health's Tunisia College of Pharmacy's We Care program and Reach Up Incorporated aims to bridge the gap between underserved communities and access to care. We Care's mission is to increase the representation of diverse populations in clinical research. It starts with rebuilding trust between academic and clinical institutions through educating and empowering the community, and then providing research opportunities along with protection and advocacy for the participants.
They want to hear the story from folks who have been through a clinical trial. You have to share all of that information with everybody.
So to take the opportunity to have a better quality of life in our communities, join us. So that is a little bit about We Care, but I wanted to, certainly as I'm introducing Dr. Snead tonight, I wanted to just let you know that We Care is the resultant of Dr. Snead's work with a bigger grant. We had a P20 grant with Moffitt Cancer Center and the College of Public Health at the University of South Florida. And Dr. Snead decided once the funding for that project was over that he would birth We Care and expand its mission. And so as the video explained, we have focused on serving as a resource to the community and trying to bridge researchers with the diverse communities so that they can understand the importance of research participation and appreciate the opportunities that therein lie. But we do a little bit more than just talk about research. And so prior to the pandemic and since the pandemic, we've provided education on a wealth of different topics, but focusing on a lot of diseases that unfortunately haunt minority and diverse communities. And so this evening, you'll get a chance to appreciate Dr. Snead's vast knowledge of COVID. He is a pharmacist like I am, also an HBCU graduate. He received his pharmacy degree from Xavier, but he went on, actually prior to that, he'd gotten a degree in biology with an emphasis in microbiology. So we're fortunate because he brings a lot of insights as it relates to the COVID infection. And I'll tell you before he does, he's probably one of the most read clinicians that you'll find in the area, probably having read at least 300, 350 articles, staying on top of every aspect of the disease. So we've had some very interesting conversations, as well as been able to spread a wealth of knowledge to the community. And so we've talked to varying groups and organizations, much like the Urban League, but wanting to make sure that we penetrate the community and make sure that we bridge the gap of misinformation that's out there, because there's so many myths pertaining not only to COVID, the infection, but now that the vaccines are here and available, there's a lot of myths, and it's unfortunately discouraging people from recognizing the need to protect themselves and their families and getting vaccinated. So tonight you'll be able to appreciate the dean from the Tanasia College of Pharmacy, and he's the founding dean. He's also senior vice president at USF Health. He still practices as an ambulatory care practitioner in our Health Academic Center at Mersani Health, and he has been instrumental in organizing vaccination events and all kinds of public awareness workshops related to COVID and beyond. He's respected in the Pharmacy Academy as well in the Tampa Bay community. So I'd like to introduce to some and present to others my colleague, my boss, my friend, Dr. Snead.
Well, Dr. Hill, thank you very much for that very generous introduction. Tonight I'm not your boss. How about that? I also want to once again thank Dr. Deborah Austin with Reach Up and Mr. Hiram Green. So much of what we've been able to accomplish in a short amount of time would not have been possible without them, and I'm just thankful for them every day. We've been together for a 3-year period. But COVID-19 really kind of thrust us into a whole different relationship, and we couldn't do what we do without them, and we're going to do so much more moving forward. This evening, I'm going to share a presentation with you all, and Dr. Hill, thank you for also sharing about the amount of work I've done just to become very familiar with COVID-19, the amount of research and reading, and you'll be interested to know I had a very, very good interaction today with the University of Washington, which has one of the top virology centers in the entire world. And so as I was interacting with those researchers, one thing led to another. And so I'm going to share with you just a little bit of what we were talking about hot off the press. It actually is not even in the press yet. So you all are seeing something with their permission that really many people have not been able to see. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. And I'm going to share the sound. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. So let's talk about the coronavirus. I mean, we hear that term, we hear the name, but what does that really mean? Well, just like many other viruses, the coronavirus itself is just a family of viruses. Many people for many, many years now, when you thought you had the common cold or maybe even the flu, it was not caused by the rhinovirus, which can cause a common cold, or the influenza virus, which can cause the flu. It very well may have been a coronavirus. And up until now, they really hadn't been dangerous. But again, back in 2002, we had the original SARS. And we all kind of remember that. And now we call it SARS-CoV-1, the first version of it. About 10 years after that, we had MERS. That developed, again, the coronavirus that kind of mutated into something rather dangerous. And now we're dealing with the SARS-CoV-2, or what we are commonly calling COVID-19. Now, the reason I put the years out there to the far right is to really help people understand that we are dealing with an evolving and with a mutating virus. And it will not always mutate into something very dangerous, but now it has. And so we just want to be very aware of that. Now, I have a couple of videos back to back that I wanted to share with you all just to give you a greater sense of what the virus is. And as we're watching the video, the second one has narration, the first one does not, but I really want you to pay attention to the inside of this actual virus. In particular, the red spike proteins on the outside. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Now, the gray items that you see here are antibodies, and in the next video, we'll explain that just a little bit more. Now I have just a very quick second video that explains a little bit more and why it becomes so important to hopefully want to build an antibody army long before you become infected.
In a world where millions of lives are under threat due to COVID-19, it is of vital importance to gain a better understanding of how the virus actually works in search of a cure. The surface of the virus particle is covered with approximately 100 spike proteins. They always come in groups of 3, in which the proteins are intertwined. Each individual protein consists of 2 parts, a globular head called S1 and a stalk-like structure called S2. One of the 3 heads is slightly bent, enabling it to connect to the so-called ACE2 receptor on a human cell. Once the connection between the virus and the receptor has been established, the human body activates the TMPRSS2 enzyme. This is a protein-cutting enzyme that proceeds to cut off the head of the spike protein. This causes a change in the structure of the virus. The S2 protein now grows longer, penetrating the human cell. The protein then retracts again, bringing the membranes of the virus and the cell very close to one another. At this point, the virus can enter the cell through a process of endocytosis. It engulfs the cell with its membrane. The virus has successfully invaded the cell and can now start to multiply, ready to overrun the system. However, we have strong defense mechanisms that try to prevent this from happening at all costs. Scientists recently discovered how our antibodies react. It's actually a very simple process. Our antibodies bind to the spike head, or S1, thereby preventing it from connecting with the ACE2 receptor and stopping the virus from spreading. Understanding exactly how this process takes place is key to the rapid development of a vaccine, making it an essential part of our ongoing fight against this global public health crisis.
So it's really important to understand that red spike protein on the outside that we've all seen on many pictures on TV is essential for it to be able to gain entry into the cells in our body. The example I've been giving lately, if you can think of Velcro, And if you were to take that Velcro and if you were to put it on a sweater, on your favorite sweater, you know that it will stick very tightly. Well, the spike proteins on the outside of the virus actually attach onto receptors in our body called the ACE2 receptor. Now, every human being on this earth has the ACE2 receptor, and therefore it allows it to attach onto that and gain entry into the cells you just saw a moment ago. Now, the only reason I put this particular cartoon up is not to go through the entire life cycle of the virus, but to bring your attention to the blue strand on the inside of the virus. It's an RNA strand. When it gains entry into your cell and that RNA strand begins to collect protein from the cell inside of your body, one cell may go in, but then it's replicating into thousands and maybe even more than that of additional cells. And it's that RNA strand that's really causing so much damage to the body. Now, this is brand new. And again, Dr. Hill and Dr. Austin, I had an opportunity to really reach out to people at University of Washington today. So I just felt really excited. I wanted to put this in. We keep hearing a lot about these variants and what are the variants and the mutations, and really want to help you understand just to see a really nice picture. And when you're talking about the mutations and at the particular locations, the little yellow dots are the ones that they've been able to measure and monitor how, the particular changes. And that's where the names come from, B117 and different names. The one in red is one that was detected out in California that really appeared to have caused so much problem, especially in the Latino community. Now, it's also really important to understand, and one thing that really caused me to give them a call and communicate with them, they actually isolated this particular virus from a primate, from a gorilla at the zoo, which they feel was actually that person or a person, the zookeeper, actually infected the gorilla, even though it was not affected. So I just wanted to kind of share a little bit more about how do we know and what these mutations are all about. Now, these ACE2 receptors are all throughout the body. I know that very commonly we think about it as being a respiratory infection. We see people on TV that have to have oxygen, that have to go on ventilators and have trouble breathing. But because of that ACE2 receptor, I'm showing you all the different areas throughout the body where it exists. So that virus can attach to your heart. It can attach onto the intestinal tract, leading to symptoms like diarrhea, of course, the lungs, and even the kidneys. And also in the picture that we have here on the far left, you see the vasculature or the veins. And so it can attach and cause clotting inside of the veins. Now, it's really important to also understand that for people that have chronic conditions like diabetes or high blood pressure, those that may fall into the overweight and obese category, people that have these conditions actually wind up having a very serious form if they can have a very serious form of COVID-19 if they become infected. And so here on the far right, if you do have those conditions, you can build a great deal of internal inflammation. Now, this is not inflammation like what you have in your fingers if they kind of swell up or if you sprain your ankle. This is actually much more dangerous. And when what we call the cytokine storm, when it begins to erupt and cause a great deal of inflammation, it can cause an enormous amount of damage to the organs. And so that's why for people that have these conditions, we really want them to be as well controlled as possible, number one. But also, number two, many African Americans, for a whole host of reasons, actually have a higher propensity to be diabetic or have high blood pressure. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can, even during the pandemic, but even after the pandemic, to try and gain control of these conditions in our African American and Latino communities. Here, I'm also kind of showing exactly some of the areas of the body that can be really affected. We've all probably either heard or even known someone that became affected by the virus and they lost their taste and smell. Well, that's part of the neurological system, in addition to headaches, which can be common for almost any virus. I've already talked a little bit about the potential for kidney injury and the GI tract. But again, starting last year, in the summertime, we really began to pay more attention to the clotting that this particular virus was causing. And so you can actually have microclots that form under the skin, or they can be much more larger clots that can travel to the lung. And then the ability for the virus to attach onto heart or cardiac tissue, leading to myocarditis. is of particular concern. Most people, if they become infected by a common respiratory viruses, up to 1% of those may wind up with a myocarditis. But now we're finding with COVID-19 that anywhere from 22 to 35% of individuals may actually have myocarditis, leading to potential for cardiac conditions. So very quickly, I want to move into just really answering the question. People think, we walked into the kitchen in the scientific community back in April of last year, and we began cooking up a vaccine just to very quickly give to people. Well, I would like to kind of give a little bit more information about that. And so I really want to let everybody here know the actual fact of the matter is that it was during the President Obama administration that we actually began developing the need and the technology for rapid deployment vaccines. Very often we forget that he had to deal with not one, but two pandemics during his time in office. Number one, H1N1, and then number two, he had to deal with the Ebola pandemic. And so we deployed a large number of people from the Public Health Service to go from here in America over to Africa to try and help them overcome Ebola. And so right after that, he actually came back and he really began to put a very heavy investment into developing new technology so that we could more rapidly respond to pandemics that were viral in nature should they occur. And so beginning in 2013 and then again in 2015, the Obama administration facilitated putting $150 million into the messenger RNA technology in order to find a way to more rapidly deal with pandemics if they should occur. And during a speech I found that he gave in 2014, December of 2014, with Dr. Fauci right by his side, by the way. And I'm not here to read the entire speech to you, but he mentioned and showed and said, that he wanted to make the investment now so that 5 years from now, or a decade from now, that the investment had been made to be able to deal with the next pandemic. And so the messenger RNA technology, the new vaccines that we're working on that are working for us right now, were actually developed a long time ago. And this is the first time that we ever had the opportunity to rapidly deploy them. Now, the next thing I'd like to also share with you is that we've had African-American involvement from the very beginning, providing oversight and interaction directly with the FDA. Here I show a picture of Dr. Leon McDougall, the president of the National Medical Association. And the National Medical Association is the lead organization for African-American physicians here in the United States. He and his task force have been constantly working with the FDA. Number one, making sure that they were provided information about the safety and efficacy of the clinical trials that were in progress. And then number two, making sure that there will be equitable distribution of the vaccine when they came out. The next person, you all may have seen Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, or Dr. Kizzy Corbett, as many people refer to her. She is a senior scientist that actually helped to develop the vaccine, the messenger RNA vaccine that is now being deployed by Moderna. And so I just wanted to make sure that all of us understand that people of color have had immense involvement with the development of the vaccine from the very beginning. And we've had immense oversight and input with the FDA as it has gone through to its current state of emergency use authorization. So here I kind of show many of the companies. Overall, there's over 200 companies, around 200 credible companies worldwide that have been working on vaccines. Here I just show a few of them. Of course, we all are familiar with Moderna and Pfizer. They are still working under emergency use authorization at this current time, but they are wrapping up all enrollment and data collection for their phase 3 trials, and have now even moved on to doing trials in younger in adolescents down to age 15 and then again down to age 12. We're all eagerly anticipating this Friday, actually. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine will go up for a review by the Advisory Council for Vaccines, the council that is advisory to the FDA, and they will have that review. And all indicators are that it will be approved by that group on Friday evening, and more than likely will be approved by the FDA either the next day or the following day on the 28th. And once they do that, the CDC will provide guidance for a quick distribution beginning probably on March 1st or March 2nd of this year. Now, everybody wants to know, what is it going to do to me? How is it going to make me feel? And by and large, every individual that winds up getting the shot has some level of pain at the site of injection on the following day. The initial injection really doesn't hurt at all. Most people don't even feel it go in. Following that, the number one side effect that the majority of people are going to feel will be fatigue the following day. Many people after that may have a small or a dull headache. A smaller number than that may have chills, nausea, vomiting. But we want to make sure that all of you know that if you were to get the vaccine and should you encounter that, it's not a bad thing. Number one, there is no live vaccine currently in development for COVID-19. Number one. Number two, if you do have that side effect, it simply means that your body is working very hard to build that antibody army that I just talked about. We want to have that antibody army available should you come into contact with COVID-19 long before you come into contact with the virus. Therefore, it can attach onto it, it can neutralize it and prevent it from actually gaining entry into your body, and hopefully prevent many of the bad side effects or the bad effects overall from that virus. So again, and also if you look here, even with the numbers on the second vaccine, typically is where the majority of people wind up having some of those issues, but the numbers don't say 100%. So it doesn't mean that you are guaranteed to feel anything whatsoever. And I have talked to people that feel like maybe it didn't work for them because they didn't have any side effects at all. But we just want to make sure that you all understand that if you do feel it, typically it will only last for about a 24 to 36 hour maximum. And we are recommending, even though there's not strong evidence, but we are recommending that people, if you begin to feel anything, you can take Tylenol. We don't want people taking Motrin or Advil or Aleve after the fact, but Tylenol after you've had the vaccine really should be more than enough to help curb some of these adverse effects. And so what I'm showing here is the fact that we are trying to build those antibodies that will attach onto those red spikes. So if you had antibodies on your Velcro, then the Velcro would not be able to attach onto your favorite sweater, thereby causing damage to the sweater. And so I think that's a very good way to think about the antibodies. And so I just wanted to end up with a few statistics that I felt would be very pertinent for this evening. I think it's very important to understand that African Americans have been among the most affected as far as any demographic group that you could find. Here, this is from last year, April of last year, when we really began to understand that there was a big problem that was truly honing in and affecting the African American community all across the country in a very terrible way. And so in every state shown here on this particular slide, the number of people that were affected outpaced and outdistanced the percentage of African Americans that lived in that state. And so that disproportionate effect really was a bad thing. And there's a lot of reasons for it, and we can talk about it a little bit later. But I also wanted to make sure that from the very beginning, at one point in this country, African Americans were dying, literally dying at 3 times the rate of our white counterparts. That number slowly over time has gone down. So here, when I collected data back in December, not that long ago, we were dying at 2 times the rate of our white counterparts. And so over time, that number has come down. And so the most recent time that I pulled this data, we were down to 1.5 times death rate above our white counterparts. It's also important to understand that our Hispanic or Latino counterparts, as well as our indigenous populations, with the Native Indian groups here, were also negatively impacted. So all people of color were impacted when compared to our white counterparts. Now here I'm showing some data, and this is the most current data that I could find. I wanted to kind of show exactly what's happening, not only here across Florida statewide, but here in Hillsborough County. So presently, almost 2.7 million people have been vaccinated across the entire state. Of that number, only 149, we still had not reached 150,000 people total that were categorized as African American. Here in Hillsborough County, you find that number, and let me move this slide just over a little bit. Here in Hillsborough County, we've had 130,000 people, almost 131,000 people that were vaccinated here in Hillsborough County. And of that entire number, not only 9,000 people have been identified as being African American. And there's a big debate going on right now as to whether or not this is due to lack of access, number one, or number two, is it due to hesitancy? And the truth is, it may be a little bit of both. And I'm going to share a little bit of data to kind of support the notion in both ways. I wanted to make you aware, and the big thing is going on both here in Florida and here in Hillsborough County, falls into that unknown category. It's a very large number. Here you can see on the left that we have almost 450,000 people who have fallen into this unknown category because it wasn't categorized at the time that they were vaccinated. And we have the very same thing with 13,000 here in Hillsborough County. So let me show you a little bit more data just to bring color and context to this. Here in Hillsborough County, we have 1.45 million people total population. And we'll just pay attention for right now, the category of those who are 65 and above. And this is data from 2019. So we have about 206,000 people that are 65 and above. And so of that number, a little bit more than half have been vaccinated. Now, when we continue on to the right, we see that for our white counterparts, they make up 83% of the total population. And so for those who have been vaccinated, they are 66% of the current people vaccinated have actually been fallen into the Caucasian category. And of that, 85,000 are now 65 plus and above. When we contrast that information with those who are categorized as Black, we make up a grand total of almost 18% of the population here in Hillsborough County. But so far, only 6.9% of the individuals who have been vaccinated have actually fallen into the African American category. Now, the Hispanic category can actually be a little bit tricky, as many of you are well aware, because you can be Black and or Hispanic if you categorize because of race and or ethnicity being reported. But right now, only 10.5% of those who report themselves as being Hispanic have been vaccinated, as opposed to making up almost 30% of the population here in Hillsborough County. And so with that, I'm going to pause right there because I would love to get to a question and answer with many of you. But I call this my Dr. Hiram Green slide, because he was telling me when we were doing the presentations, I'm going to stop sharing here. Yeah, he was telling me that when we, with Reach Up, again, just have to thank them. We've been doing these presentations since May of 2020. And we've done probably, by my count now, close to 50 presentations overall for the communities here in Tampa Bay, across Florida, and even nationally. And I put that picture up because people were asking, well, is Dr. Snead going to take the shot? Well, I wanted to show people, yes, I took it. I took it as quickly as I could because I wanted to be an example. And then the very last thing I will share with all of you, and continues to be the number one concern I hear about the long-term effect. What's the long-term effect? Well, I'm telling people right now, the danger is right in front of us at this moment. And there's nothing more dangerous right now than actually contracting the virus. I have colleagues right now and even family members who have been affected. And I have a colleague right now who's going to say goodbye to a loved one at this current moment. That was actually infected months ago, but has such very severe organ damage, is now expiring at the end of their life. And it's very, very hard for us to hear that. So I'm going to pause right there, Dr. Hill, and see if we have any questions. I invite many of you to please ask any questions that you may have. We'll try the best we can to answer them. But thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Well, thank you, Dr. Snead, for that information. And I hope that all of you have been enlightened. And so this is the part that we look most forward to, and that is getting a chance to appreciate your questions, your feedback. And this is an opportunity for you to get clarity on any kind of gray areas that may exist. And I just want to also pause to say that I know Ms. Henry promised that we would have some more giveaways. So so while you all are putting your questions in the chat, I'll actually let her do a few giveaways, and then we'll come back and start looking at questions.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. We're actually going to do our first giveaway to the person who gave the first question. So give me just a second and I will highlight this giveaway is from Bloomin' Brands. So just a moment.
Miss Henry, I thought you were giving away a laptop.
I wish. So $50 dining card to Bloomin' Brands. And if you're not familiar with Bloomin' Brands, our fabulous restaurants include Outback Steakhouse, Carrabba's Italian Grill, Bonefish Grill, and Fleming's Prime Steakhouse and Wine Bar. And that goes to the person who asked the first question, Jasmine Dumas. So thank you so much for the very first question. And I think it would be appropriate, Dr. Hill, for us to kick it back to you and see if you can answer that question that is in the chat.
Okay, well, I did want to just acknowledge that Stanley Gray also asked a question at the same exact time. So I'm not sure if you have another gift card, but his question, Dr. Snead, was, do you know where Dr. McDougall moved on to?
Well, no, I don't think he's moved on to anywhere.
Okay.
He's actually a family physician at the Ohio State University and
Okay.
does teaching up there at the Wexner Medical Center. And so he was just the current president for the NMA.
Okay.
But I'm sure that he plays such a vital role in communication with the FDA. And when he and I have had the occasion to talk, he's become a celebrity. Dr.
Awesome.
Hill, he's got Jesse Jackson calling him directly on his mobile phone. So, so he hasn't gone anywhere.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Snead. Stanley Gray is our leader at the Urban League of Hillsborough County. So we will not give him a gift card, but he is the driver behind the board of directors and the advisory board. He keeps us on our toes. So I did not pay him to ask that question, but my Bloomin' Brands family who are on, I'm a big Ohio State fan and an alum. So shout out to the Wexner Center and thanks for asking about Dr. McDougall. So
okay, great.
That up.
Awesome. So we will go to Mrs. Dumas's question. And she wanted to know, Dr. Snead, if you could further explain why acetaminophen instead of the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs.
Yeah, this is a question that actually Dr. Hill and Dr. Austin encountered with me probably about a month ago when we were working with a company out in Texas. And I've been investigating ever since. And so I'm just going to be very honest here, and Dr. Hill, because of your pharmacological knowledge, you'll be able to follow along. I think there's a big misperception on the part of the medical community about the anti-inflammatory benefit or lack thereof of acetaminophen or Tylenol versus that of Advil, Motrin, or ibuprofen or naproxen. I have not been able to indicate anything that would credibly show that Tylenol would actually inhibit or could potentially lessen the effect of the vaccines given and lessen the effect of the body's ability to form antibodies. However, I just want to make sure that all the information I'm giving you is evidence-based, and the CDC is giving guidance right now indicating that they would recommend that people not take Tylenol or Motrin or Aleve before getting vaccinated. But I'm from day one, and Dr. Austin has been with me on the very first day that we began telling people that I personally don't think that the anti-inflammatory effect of Tylenol would do anything to your body because it doesn't work that way. That's just not how it works in your body. And so I don't want to get too technical, but we'll follow the CDC and their recommendations, and the recommendation is you can probably take it afterwards, after you get vaccinated. Should not be a problem, and especially if you begin to encounter any effects. But medically speaking and pharmacologically speaking, and they readily admit, by the way, that it's not based upon any study that has been done to indicate it's just a general recommendation just in case.
And just to reiterate what you said in the presentation, the reason they would take the Tylenol or acetaminophen would be, sometimes you have some soreness in the arm or maybe a little headache or something. So we don't want people to just think you automatically take it. You want to have some symptoms kind of warranting it. And then certainly make sure you're talking to your pharmacist about how much you should take. There are some limits that we want to make sure you're mindful of. So thank you so much, Ms. Dumas, for that question. So Mrs. Watts, if I'm not mistaken, won one of our gift cards also, and she had a question, and hers was, could you explain the notable differences between the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, and would you recommend one or over the other?
Yeah, this is a very, very good question. And I think perception is becoming reality all across the country right now. Both of them use a technology called messenger RNA. However, the way that they are manufactured is far different. The Pfizer product has what we call 30 micrograms, so a very small amount, and it's in a vial, and we have to actually take a little bit of saline or salt water and put it into the vial and kind of gently let it reconstitute for about a 5-minute period. The Moderna product doesn't require all of that. We just store it in the freezer, and when we need to, when we're about to give it, we put it out and we let it thaw for a little while. But there's about 100 micrograms of the messenger RNA in the Moderna product versus 30. Now, pharmacologically and biologically, it probably doesn't make that big a difference because of how it gets into the body. But people are beginning to seem like they have a little bit more side effect with Moderna than they do with Pfizer. We keep hearing that over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, I tell my students common things happen commonly. However, I don't want people to be afraid of the Moderna product because ultimately it's still only a 24-hour period, number one. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is protect you from really the far more dangerous effect of being infected by the virus. So even with the Johnson & Johnson product coming out, which is only one shot, we want to make sure that people are getting whatever you can when you can. Because the variants are out there, and we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Snead. So the next question, she just had a comment. Thank you for touching on the expedited testing not being new, but she wanted to know, how could doctors really know what the long-term effects could be? That seems, like something that we still need to wait a little while before we can reach conclusions. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, my general thought right now, let me explain a little bit more about messenger RNA and how it works. Number one, in the example I give all the time is all of us have been on the computer, and if you type in the word vaccine in your Word document and you hit send, and you send it to a printer, the printer will print out the word vaccine on a piece of paper. But messenger RNA, when it gets into your muscle tissue, is now going to send a code to your body, to a ribosome in your cell, telling it to print out the material that your body will then recognize and build antibodies against. So really, the messenger RNA is like a computer code that we're downloading into your body. Now, it's really important to understand that messenger RNA is going to be gone a few hours after you inject it. All of us have messenger RNA in our body. The technology around messenger RNA really originated more along the lines of finding out more for cancer drugs and cancer research. And somebody had the great idea, hey, we may be able to use it for vaccines. And so the long-term effect right now, again, we're not going to know because we haven't had enough time. But the one thing I can tell you is that every time we enroll a single individual into a clinical trial, you're enrolling for a 2-year period. And all of the people that enrolled back beginning in April of last year, they are monitoring these people very closely all the time. And they're continuing to monitor them. And so we're learning with each passing day, going all the way back to the very beginning when people did phase 1 trials. But we have every reason to believe at the current moment, and we'll have to wait for the future to believe that we do have a very safe and effective vaccine.
And Dr. Steen, I want to add to that the federal government has, or FDA has set up surveillance systems so people can download the VSafe app to their phone after they've been vaccinated. They can report any problems to the FDA through some of the websites. There's about 3 different websites that they could report to. And as Dr. Snead commented, there's agencies that are set up to actually monitor and make sure that people are not experiencing any adverse events. And also, so far, so good. We really haven't heard where we've had any major problems. Very good. Well, Mr. Gray wanted to kind of know how the churches have been helping, and we certainly have some positive things to share regarding our working with the churches, but I'll let you start, Dr. Snead.
Yeah, well, you know what, Dr. Hill, because you were so instrumental, I'm going to let you take the first part of that question. So how about that? I'm going to kick it back over to you, my friend.
Okay, so early on, as we started doing our education, we did a couple things. One, Dr. Snead was able to meet with a lot of pastors and had these really small workshops to kind of educate them first. And then all of us are church associated, and our individual pastors actually took interest in a lot of the work that we did. And Dr. Snead and I had the pleasure of participating in a panel discussion for my church during a Bible study, and seemed like it kind of caught on from there. But we've had probably what I would say about 5 or 6 churches that we've entertained individually, but we've also been able to connect to some of the larger organized groups. So the oh goodness, I'm having a brain
United
break
Methodist
right now. But the United Methodist group, we met with them last week. We met with the Southern Baptist Convention group. We've met with just several larger groups, and that's allowed us to encompass hundreds of churches. And then there has also been of recent, a lot of the churches have been able to host vaccination events at their actual churches, and we've been able to assist them in recruiting age-appropriate individuals for those events. So one of the things that we're just really proud and excited of is just the level of enthusiasm that the churches have in terms of the education interest, as well as certainly making sure that they've been, available for the community as sites to kind of help with the vaccination since they've started. So did I leave anything out, Dr. Austin, Dr. Snead? Because all of us have worked really hard in that vein.
Yeah, I think early on, just working with the churches and bringing a group of pastors together. I mean, we met with a lot of pastors, and so I even consider that to be outreach. If you take a look at that, we probably had a direct outreach to about 50 different churches. And the other thing that we were able to do, and part of the reading I've been able to do again over the past year, is really spanned all the way from the cellular mechanism all the way to the behavioral part. And so we really, we consulted again with Dr. Hill, with multiple churches on ways that we thought that they could try to best conduct services in person in a more safe manner. Because again, but I really had to let people know the virus, is biological. And it can affect you in the church, and it can affect God-fearing people. And that much we know. So we wanted to keep everyone safe. But Dr. Hill, no, thank you very much for that very good explanation.
And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of leaders in the pastoral community because of COVID infection. And so we're not quite sure how that's fed some of the enthusiasm about the vaccine, but, definitely it's been concerning. So Dr. Snead, you got a lot of compliments for the knowledge and the information. And I'm going to actually invite Dr. Austin as well to kind of help make sure I'm combing through all the questions and not skipping any. And then Ms. Henry, let me know when you're ready to give out some more giveaways. And I do hope our names are in there too. I hadn't heard our names. So the next question was from Christopher Hurst, and he asked, what are your thoughts around vaccination for younger children, those less than 10 years old? Is testing occurring in this age group?
Yeah. Thank you very much. In the interest of getting to the Q&A, I kind of glossed over it very quickly. About both Moderna and Pfizer, they have clinical trials going on in adolescent populations right now. And they go back in 3-year increments from age 18. So they've gone down to age 15 and then again down to age 12. At this current moment, I think they have kind of paused there. I do not believe they have every intention. They want to go down to age 9, but I'm not sure that they felt they would have the numbers that they need to gain the safety data to submit back to the FDA. But all indicators are right now, we knew it from the very beginning, that there may be a possibility of adding that data, that safety data, back into what has already been done. And these clinical trials, and again, I didn't show the slide for time, but we had 30,000 people in the Moderna trial. We have 45,000 people in the Pfizer trial, another 30,000 people in Johnson & Johnson, and 2 different wings. So that's probably about 60,000 people and another 30,000 in Novavax. And we've been able to get these really large numbers because of the pandemic. And what I can tell you is that we probably are going to have enough data and information to vaccinate children sometime in this fall of this year. So I think that will be a great thing. And if we have any teachers out there, or if you know any teachers, or if you're an advocate for the education profession, I am a big advocate that I believe that we should go in and vaccinate teachers. And we should just go in and vaccinate them on a Friday right at the school. And they can go home, and if they have any mild adverse effects, they can kind of let it wear off on Saturday. They can come back up on Sunday and be back at school on Monday. But I think we should be vaccinating teachers as essential workers. But I hope that answers that question. Thank you, Christopher, for that very good question.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Snead. Well, I'd like to also next talk about this question that's come up quite a bit. And then Ms. Henry, I want you to get ready to give away something. So Elizabeth wants to know, Ms. Pettigrew wants to know, is it ideal for persons who are considered long haulers to take the vaccination? And I want to make sure that the audience knows we've been defining long haulers as people who've had the residual signs and symptoms of COVID infection. So like some people say, I still can't smell, or I still can't taste, or I'm still tired. Those are examples of people that we consider long haulers. And now we're appreciating that people are having a whole lot more what we call CNS, mind altering or like this COVID fog and confusion kind of problem. So those would be some additional symptoms you might see in long haulers. So Dr. Snead, are we suggesting it for suggesting those people for the vaccine?
Yeah, hot off the press on the current belief and research that we're looking at right now are people who have already been infected one time before. And again, that's on positive PCR. We are believing that we can recommend, number one, that we want you to wait about a 90-day period from the time that you were diagnosed. But then number two, what we're really believing is that individuals who have already been infected will probably gain protection by getting not two shots, but one. And I fully support that notion for a whole lot of scientific reasons that are too complicated to get into. But a lot of it has to do with the variants that we have out there. And so we have an opportunity to try and set the body to be much more agnostic around the variants. And we do think that the current vaccines are going to be very effective against the variants. And but not one, but 2 shots right now. That's the current thinking and belief. And for people who are long haulers, the worst thing that we can do is have any potential for reinfection at that point, because we don't want further damage to occur. But that's kind of the current thinking that we have right now.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Snead. All right, Ms. Henry, what you got for us?
I am ready for you. If you go back to that question that she just asked about long haulers, I'm going to translate it in a different sense. We are now at our hour mark. And so we have a few folks who are long haulers with us, and welcome to stay. But I do want to recognize the last person to register for this conversation before we started tonight was actually the person who asked the last question. I want to just say thank you for asking a question, and you are going to be the recipient of a gift from our other sponsor, Vistra, and Chris Butler will be reaching out to you. He is the representative from Visa who will be giving you your gift card. That $50 gift card will help you do some household shopping at Target or Target, I like to say.
Yes.
Congratulations and thank you for joining. And since we do have some long haulers on the phone, if you want to continue the conversation and Q&A and the doctors have the time, we'd love to have you because we do have more fabulous prizes to give away. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Hill.
Okay, and we do.
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Hill. I'm gonna say something here in a moment.
Okay, I was going to say we certainly are grateful for our long haulers and those who have stuck with us. And oftentimes this does happen where we go a little over time. But before I forget, I wanted to say Dr. Austin and I both will put our emails in the chat. And that way, anyone who has a question that they haven't been able to ask yet, or if you want to ask some additional questions for the future, and or if you're interested in attending any future We Care webinars, we'll be glad for you to reach out to us. And your registration tonight also kind of gives us some insight on how to contact you, but we do hope that you will become a groupie if we could call you that, because this has been an ever evolving opportunity with the pandemic. And as Dr. Snead says, every workshop is different. He adds one slide here, one slide there. Every now and then, I'll add 2 cents. And so we just really want to make sure that you all are as educated as possible, but we will make sure we put our emails in the slides. So if you all are comfortable, we'll go ahead and continue. We have some wonderful questions, and I really hope that you can stick around. And Dr. Snead, you have to let us know how much time you have tonight.
My boss said I'm good to go.
Okay, all right. Well, if your boss said you're good, then you're good.
Well, to go back to an old joke from Robin Harris. My wife thinks I'm at 7-Eleven right now. So,
awesome.
Dr. Hill, let me go back to the long hauler component. Okay. Again, this is something I pulled up just today to try and illustrate. I'm going to share my screen here. So what you're looking at is what winds up happening to what potentially can happen to lung tissue. And what we're finding are, you see the COVID-19 lung on the right, and you don't have to be a radiologist to kind of look at it and say something doesn't look right there. And what we're finding that even that people that were not really, really sick people that had to be hospitalized and go into the ICU, some of them are developing this scarring of their lung tissue, even when they really weren't that sick to begin with. And again, it goes back to just the inflammatory process of what this what this virus can do. So I just wanted to kind of show that and reveal that to everybody, just so that we could really begin to help people understand. And I think, again, I'm kind of gazing through here also, and yeah, I know people are wondering, well, the long-term effect or what will it do? Well, we know the danger in front of us. I had to change the D word I was using before. I was saying, we know the devil in front of us versus the devil that we don't. We know the danger in front of us versus the danger that we don't. And we're finding more and more people are becoming affected, much in the way of the image I just showed you, even when they weren't that sick to begin with. And so, we're trying to get people protected as much as possible.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on. Mrs. Edwina Reddick asks, she said her parents are 91 years old and only have high blood pressure, dementia, and diabetes. Should they take the vaccine?
Well, Ms. Reddick, the first thing I want you to do, when you see them again, I want you to take their hands and rub it on you so some of that can rub off on you, okay? That's a true blessing right now to reach that age. Yeah, my recommendation is, yeah, they should get it. We've had multiple people in their 90s come and get the vaccine. And again, I showed earlier that if you have that condition and you become infected by that virus, it has a great potential to do very, very bad things to the body. And what we are also indicating and finding out right now is that, they're at 90, they're tolerating the vaccine a lot better than we thought. There had been this fear back in January that, people were getting the vaccine and what kind of bad things. And, Hank Aaron died, one of my heroes, my personal heroes. And But people are now kind of going back and reflecting, even what happened with him, and saying, well, we had no indicator, we had no inflammatory process, we had nothing that really indicated that he was negatively impacted because of the vaccine. And he passed away peacefully in his sleep 2.5 weeks after he got the first vaccines. So yeah, we've had multiple 90-year-olds now get it. They're doing great, they're doing fine. And especially if they have the conditions you're talking about, then clearly we want them protected as well.
Okay. Very good, very good. You have your hand up or anybody? Okay, no, that's just my cursor. Okay, Ms. Purcell Jackson, nice to see you again. So her concern was, is there room for human error when we have to mix or compound the Pfizer vaccine? Because you commented on how the Moderna does not require, us to have to mix it. Is there more room for human error that way?
Well, I'm going to answer the question this way. The Pfizer group has done a very, very good job of training people in the proper way and method for what we call reconstituting that particular vaccine. Okay, I mean, and they're very meticulous, and people who are trained to do it, they have zero problem whatsoever mixing it. Now, having said that, what you have to make sure you do is you can't shake it up, because the messenger RNA in that vial is very, very, very fragile.
Very delicate.
And but I've been watching people, and we all know that. And so people who are well-intentioned, they're well-trained. If they're a well-trained pharmacist or a nurse, they're not going to have any problem mixing anything up. And the actual vials to reconstitute it with the saline come with the vial, so, which is very common. So there really should not be any human error that can go along with that.
Yes. Very good. Okay, moving along. This is a question I don't think we've been asked before, but it's interesting. Mrs. Tammy Gardner asked, if messenger RNA has been around for a while, why has the vaccine only been approved for emergency authorized use from the FDA?
Okay, Ms. Gardner, that's a very good question.
That's a good question.
Well, you know what, and I'm going to give you an answer that's going to, well, I don't know, it may not knock your socks off, but it's going to be very entertaining for Dr. Hill, I promise you. No, the messenger RNA research and technology has been around for well over 10 years. As a matter of fact, and I always say women are genetically superior to men. I truly and firmly believe that. It was a woman that actually discovered this technology for the current use that we're in right now. But what they were really trying to do is find a safe way to get it into the body. And so they wound up using salmon eggs. They wound up using a whole lot of different things to try and get tissue that the messenger RNA could be bound in, that could safely be injected into your body. And so they came up with kind of a lipid material, kind of a cholesterol-like material that proved to be very effective. Now, the emergency use authorization, that's a mechanism that has been used by the FDA for a long time period. And you only do that when indeed you really and truly do have an emergency, which we currently have right now. But it doesn't mean that we've had any shortcuts. We haven't taken anything away from the research. But if you can prove safety and efficacy, all it really means is that we had not reached the final number of people in the phase 3 portion of that study. And about 44,000 people of the 45,000 people was the final number that went to the FDA prior to them getting the EUA for the Pfizer product. But they actually had more than 45,000 people, because when you added in the people from the phase 1 study in terms of safety, we actually have more than the target. And so, as I mentioned before, the trials are ongoing. They will continue on for a full 2-year period. And so we should not have any concern about the emergency use authorization, but the technology has been around for a very, very, very long time. But they were really just trying to figure out how to deliver it into the body. And so, Dr. Hill, you know how scientists are. I was tickled to death when I found out they took the material from inside a salmon egg, just as a means of trying to figure out and learn how to deliver it into the body in a safe manner. And so I said, scientists, you get a biochemist and the pharmacologist together, you can make a lot of really wonderful things happen.
That's true. That's true. Well, thank you, Dr. Snead. So Mr. Roundtree brings up a question that we've seen, quite a bit, and that is in regards to how churches should handle the prospect of regathering inside, because many of them have resorted to virtual services and things of that nature. So let's hear your thoughts there.
And Dr. Snead, you know who that is. That's Pastor Roundtree. You and he spoke at our Affirming Fatherhood conference together last year. So you know who that is.
And I apologize,
Pastor Roundtree. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you an answer that has evolved since October. The answer I'm gonna give you has evolved since October. Early on, Dr. Hill and Dr. Austin and Mr. Green, we were advising people on 2 points. Number one, you probably only want to bring about 25% of your people back into the church on any given Sunday. Number two, you want to keep them physically distanced. And number three, you want to keep a mask on. And you probably, if you could, we wanted to do away with singing because of the nature of how, anytime you are talking and expelling air out into the atmosphere, you can put the virus into the air. With the current mutations that we have been hearing about, and I'm trying really hard not to use the country, excuse me. I try really hard not to, they call it, the UK variant, the South Africa variant. Well, we have numbers for that now, and all of us in the scientific community are trying not to disparage those locations. But with the current variants that are out there, this virus has now mutated and evolved and become so much more efficient at infecting our body that the transmissibility of it coming back out has increased since that time. And so now we clearly don't want people out singing, talking loud, being in enclosed areas, restaurants and that kind of thing with the variants that are out there. And so, again, I think my clearest recommendation would be to still have only 25% of the people come back into the church at any one given time. Make sure that they are apart. And I would actually have you mandate double masking. That's where you hear the double masking part coming in now. We want people wearing 2 masks, and we want that mask, by the way, we want that mask to be tight on your face on the side, okay? We don't want, we see people with these big gaps down here with the nose out. That's not good enough. It's simply not good enough, and we know that scientifically now, but I think that's the best answer I can give you. But even from the time that we first started giving that advice, the enhanced transmissibility of the virus right now is really causing me to have an additional pause in what we're telling people in terms of what they can do in terms of gathering.
And Pastor Roundtree, I do apologize for not recognizing that you were a pastor, but I would like to add some of the churches are also doing the same screening that you would see being done when you enter, say, a doctor's office or something like that. So my church, for example, has a health and wellness ministry, and we've been staffing that particular process using members of the committee to actually check for fever and go through the same battery of questions that you would be asked if you were entering, your doctor's office or some medical facility. So that's something else that we've seen. And then the CDC guidelines must be followed. So thank you for that question. So do we have any more giveaways, Ms. Henry, or you want to keep going with questions?
I do have another giveaway, and we'll stick to Target because I know everyone can use that. Again, that is from our partners at Vistra, but I want to throw out a question that'll be the fastest finger, and it's really easy. Type in the year that the National Urban League was founded. If you can answer that, the first person to answer correctly will win a gift card to Target. So we'll see who gets to that answer, and we'll let you keep rolling.
Okay, well, the next question that we got is interesting. Mrs. Laura Kavanaugh said that her mother got what was referred to as COVID arm. Her entire upper arm and shoulder turned red and itchy for about a week after she got the Moderna shot. And other than that, she didn't have any other reactions. And so Ms. Kavanaugh is concerned, wondering if she got the vaccination, would she have the same reaction?
Yeah, to be honest, we probably have the technology, but we're not smart enough to answer that question for you in full.
Yes. Mhm.
Because what you're really asking is whether or not, because it's your mother and you have genetic patterns very similar to her, does that mean that you would get it? And there's no way for me to answer that question for you. What you're describing is actually very uncommon, but there have been a few reports out there, but it's very uncommon for people to get that. And as a matter of fact, a lot of my reading, and just for women in general here that are present still at this time, a lot of my reading has been focused on, I just read 2 or 3 more today, earlier this morning, very early this morning, just about women and mammograms, because that's a question that's continuing to come up. And and we do have evidence right now, some people that get the shot and it causes a local inflammatory reaction in the lymph nodes that winds up causing some of the breast tissue to actually become a little bit inflamed, and it might be picked up on if you have a mammogram. And so the current recommendation right now, even if that were to occur, is that either you wait for an 8-week period, or if you go in for the mammogram, make sure that you tell the radiologist that you had the COVID vaccine within, as soon as you check in, so that they don't feel like there's an abnormality that will require follow-up. But what you're describing in terms of COVID arm, that's pretty rare. Um, I don't have any recommendation medically for you or even for her at this point. That would have to be a conversation that she would have to have with her physician and provider to see if she would move on for the second shot.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Snead. Dr. Austin, we get this question quite a bit. This is another myth. The next one about Mrs. Denise Romer asks, how's the fact that the vaccination is injected into a muscle, not possibly altering our DNA?
Yeah, we get that question quite often, and so Miss Denise, let me share with you that messenger RNA does not get into your DNA cells. It has no capability of getting in, and therefore it cannot interact and alter any of your DNA whatsoever. The human body has a lock and key mechanism, and it is locked out, and it cannot change anything. So, we get that question quite often. We've been getting it for almost a year now. But the currently available vaccines will not change, alter, interact with any of your DNA in your body whatsoever. Biochemically, it is impossible for that to occur. So thank you very much for that question and allowing me to hear that reply.
Yes. Well, Pastor Roundtree also gave a commercial out for the fact that New Mount Zion is offering a vaccine event this Saturday for individuals over age 65. And I was actually on the Zoom call this afternoon. And I want to just add to that announcement that they have to have any names by tomorrow at noon so that their church staff has time to put the information in Florida Shots, which is the database that captures the information on who's getting the vaccine. So if you're interested, in the chat, Pastor Roundtree has put the phone number as well as an email for you to contact the church staff. But again, tomorrow at noon is really important. So the Department of Health is going to be supplying the vaccines. And so New Mount Zion is one of several churches that have been doing this. We are aware that people are having difficulty getting through, and getting appointments like with the Department of Health and other places. And so this is an opportunity for individuals over 65. Ms. Yvonne Williams had the next question, and Dr. Snead, this may be an opportunity for another commercial, but her question was, will vaccines be taken to areas where transportation might be a problem, such as the housing projects, et cetera?
Yeah, Dr. Hill, I'm going to combine your reply to Pastor Roundtree about the New Mount Zion with the reply I'm going to give to Ms. Yvonne Williams. Again, another publication came out right around the time of the Super Bowl. And it indicated, and it really did show that number one, the highest transmitters in the entire country are between the age of 25 and 49. Okay. And if it had not been for that particular group, we probably could have shut down a lot of the problem that we're having across the country, the peaks and that occurred. And so reading that, I'm now actually advocating for people around me, and maybe we need to change our strategy and make sure we open up vaccinations for a much younger group to try and shut down transmission that could be negatively impacting those 65 and above. Now, of course, we have the governor's order, 65 and above, and which leads into the question for Ms. Williams, that we are presently and currently developing and changing our strategy here at USF Health and part of We Care, along with Reach Up, obviously. And we are developing a plan for mobile, to go mobile into communities right now. And we think that's going to be a far more effective strategy for two reasons. Number one, Dr. Hill already mentioned, many people in those communities are having trouble just getting into the Department of Health. Many, you may not even have Wi-Fi if you're 85 or 90 years old in your house, let alone being able to sit down all day and keep hitting enter. And competing with 500,000 people for what turns out to be about 9,000 spots for that week. And then number two, and more importantly, we think by going mobile, more vaccine is going to come onto the market. Now every Publix, every Walmart, every Sam's Club, every Winn-Dixie. I'm going to be pushing the person that I work with, Dr. Lockwood. I'm going to be pushing him to talk to the state of Florida to try and include independent pharmacies in that. Because in many of our African-American communities, we're more likely to have an independent pharmacy there than we are to have one of the largest stores I just mentioned. But now that we're going to open that up, now we want to go mobile and try and find the people that cannot make it out. Okay, and we're going to, if you allow me, I would love to partner with Miss Henry, no, I'm sorry. Miss Henry, you can tell I'm in a playful mood tonight. I'm going to have Dr. Hill and Dr. Henry kind of interact with each other because they got the sisterhood thing that's developed. Okay.
I wish I were Dr. Henry, but Mrs. Henry is fine.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, you know what? You can hang out with Dr. Green. Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we're giving away honorary doctoral degrees. How about that? But I would love. We are going again through Reach Up. They're going to be very key. I'm developing a strategy right now, and we're going to have community partners, and you all are going to help us find people, and we're going to get as many coordinators as we can. And we're going to database everybody, and we're going to create these heat maps, and it's going to be very sophisticated. And I've already talked with my scientific group, and they can't wait to build these interactive maps. And we're going to be able to know where we need to go. So Ms. Williams, stay tuned. We're going to try and get to the people that want to get it. We're going to know who they are before we get there. And preferably the Johnson & Johnson product will be approved by then. And that will be a one-shot vaccination. And therefore we can go in and vaccinate many more people and not have to worry about the logistics of coming back at a later 3 or 4 week time period after this. So stay tuned.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we're right at the 8 o'clock hour, and I wanted to just announce that Ms. Purcell Jackson actually won that last gift card. She got the answer first, but I think we're kind of winding down on the questions. But I think we've had Ms. Jackson asked, and I think a second person asked at the end about whether or not, once people are infected, do they, stop shedding the virus, or do we ever get to a point where that process is over? And so I just wanted you to kind of address it. So hopefully you see it, Dr. Snead. If it's known if the body completely sheds the virus once infected and recovered.
Yeah, presently all the information are that you will shed it, or it will eventually break down, so you won't be able to continue transmitting it in your body. There's a big difference between what we call RNA and then DNA-based viruses. Many of the DNA-based viruses are the ones that wind up living in our body for a longer period of time, like the Epstein-Barr virus. or what varicella that causes shingles, for example. So we don't think there's going to be any long-term living of the cells in your body, not that I'm aware of right now, but we're going to continue to make sure we measure and monitor that. And then I see another question here about long haulers.
Yeah.
Depending on where you go, a form of that already exists right here in Hillsborough County. Unfortunately, is run by a hospital system for their patients that come out of their hospital. And so we don't have one that's just open for everybody to the public here in Hillsborough County, but we should. Really, it's just a matter of whether or not we can get financial resources to run that. And also, I wanted to let you all know I had a great conversation on Saturday. The FEMA location is going to open up vaccination center. Will be opening up at the racetrack on Waters Avenue. And I'm sure that will be open here very, very soon. So that will be another option for people to be able to go out and get vaccinated. And so I know we're probably coming down to the end of our time. I'm just kind of scrolling through here. I see Dr. Trotz. Dr. Trotz is on here. She's still on?
I am. Thanks.
How are you doing, Dr. Trotz? I'm glad you were on this evening. Yeah, her question is if churches will have limited in-person, should they consider air filters? People have been looking at the air filters. They've been looking at UV lights. We've been doing a whole host of things, and it really does come down to a couple of things. Number one, how circulation of the air is probably a little bit more important than just air filters. And then number two, and probably more important, is just the amount of virus they just put out and aerosolize from the number of people in that particular location. All of the research that had been done, and we had it very early on, back in April of last year, was the very simple fact that if you were in an enclosed environment, we thought that the virus would just kind of float around and then fall to the ground very quickly. Well, it hung around for hours. In some reports now, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, that it hung around in the air. Now, it's not truly airborne, but the air currents in an enclosed environment. And so the big question comes down to the size of the church. Are you moving enough air with an air filter? Is the air filter truly going to capture the virus out of the atmosphere? There are so many variables that we really haven't been able to determine from a scientific standpoint. But we're certainly not discouraging anybody from doing anything that they feel will help contribute to a more sanitized and safe environment. So thank you very much for that question.
So her second one was, how does one make a good seal with a surgical mask, tape, or should they be trying to get or wear the N95s?
Yeah, we are recommending that everybody wear the N95. They can be hard to get a hold of, and we have to be really careful. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people out there taking advantage of the manufacturing and people's desire to have an N95. And so we really have to do one thing. Number one, for the N95, the most the manufacturing standard is what we call NIOSH, NIOSH. Now they can be very difficult to find. Number two, there's the KN95 that is a level down below just a regular N95. But then number three, and I don't know how to tell you or anyone else to be careful about this because there are too many companies out there. But you have to be careful about who you do purchase it from, because some people are claiming that they're N95 or even the surgical mask, and they're not. And we are having people that are actually getting masks like the one I have here, and it's not it doesn't have the 3 layers on the surgical mask that we want. And then it's so poorly manufactured that the little fibers are coming off, and actually people are inhaling the fibers. Now, I haven't heard anyone hurt from that yet, but it's a poorly manufactured mask. And so I don't think we have to worry about masking on the side of the face, but if you double mask, typically that's going to create enough of that to kind of make sure that it does get enclosure around right under the eye and then on the side of the face. So thank you very much for that question.
And we're not asking for tape, right? We're not advocating.
We're not advocating for tape at this current time.
Dr. Snead, I put a link in the chat the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center does a briefing every Friday for 30 minutes at noon. And so on the 12th, they actually did a series on how to make that seal with the surgical mask. I mean, the doctor actually sits there and shows you how to do it for those people who want to do that. So
yeah, but they weren't advocating for any tape, I'm sure.
no. I was saying how to make,
you
know, how to take that surgical mask and just take the ear things.
Yeah, the earpiece, with the tied off part. Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I just put that there just in case someone was interested. And then I have another question, Dr. C. When we go back and talk about the churches, some have started to have services outside. So if they have services outside, would you still want them to have those limits on singing?
You know, we feel eminently that being outside and being apart from each other, maintaining that physical distance is much safer, is a much safer option. Barometric pressure, believe it or not, is not in favor of being able to transmit that virus that way. But I'm not aware of any directed studies that say that you cannot become infected if you go outside, but we clearly know that you have less of a chance of being infected. And so I've been a strong advocate of having church outside. And and I think our good friend Pastor Mason, I've gotten it on good information from someone at that church that they've held services outside too. And so if you have to do it, I think outside would be better. But the singing part, I can't give evidence one way or the other, and we want to make sure we're giving good information to our people tonight. So I think it's less likely that you're going to have a problem if you're singing outside and you're physically distanced. But is it 100%? I can't indicate that. But everyone should be wearing a mask outside anyway. Okay, so I think eminently that will be a much safer option for church and worship services.
Okay. Did you want to continue, Dr. Austin?
I'm done.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, Miss Elizabeth Shelby Pettigrew asked, do we think the COVID-19 vaccine will become a part of the immunization schedule for children? I know we've been asked quite a bit about whether or not it'll be added, annually like the flu vaccine. So what are your thoughts about children?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Let me just share this with you for all of you here. Remember the coronavirus has been around for a long time. Okay, we've had, it causes the common cold for about 10% of people that get a cold. And so there's no guarantee that a year from now, if we can get this under control with this current strain, that any coronavirus in the future is going to be nearly as dangerous as what we're dealing with right now. But now every expectation may be, number one, we may wind up doing an annual vaccine. Number two, we're using the current technology around messenger RNA, and then and by the way, the technology for the Johnson & Johnson is what we call an adenovector viral transport. And so, but we can tailor the vaccine to the genetic code for the coronavirus, and we can do that within a 6-week period. And so, it may wind up being annual. And as far as children, again, we're doing the clinical trials right now. And full disclosure, I want everyone to know, and Dr. Hill, I apologize because I didn't do this in the very beginning. I am a clinical investigator for Novavax. I'm actually involved with the team doing the clinical trials on another company doing clinical trials right now here in Tampa Bay. But those trials are ongoing, and so I do anticipate that we may get to a point that it may be added to children, but that remains to be seen. Currently, right now, children's rates of transmission in schools has been very low, much lower on a national level and even internationally than we would have anticipated. I think children are probably far more mask compliant than those in the 25 to 49. Which means that they're more adult than the adults. So, and also, their likelihood, even though some can become very ill, but the likelihood of becoming seriously ill statistically is very low. So, I just wanted to share that information with all of you, but I think that's a great question.
Okay. Well, I think we're winding on down now. Dr. Trotz had asked the question about the percentage of people, Black people who've been vaccinated in Tampa, but I think you may have already kind of addressed or alluded to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a kind of tricky question to answer because as I mentioned before, the current rate right now, we're right at 7% African Americans here in Hillsborough County. The statewide average is just now climbing up to 5.5% statewide. I'm a little bit disappointed because here we are a little bit behind the Miami Broward County area. They're at about 10.5%. And Jacksonville has done a very good job at 13%, but they have a much higher concentration of African Americans. I think part of the problem and challenge is we don't know the unknown category. There's a lot of people stuck in the unknown category. And we're beginning to speculate right now that there are probably quite a few African Americans that are in that unknown category. But even with that, we're not where we need to be. But the other part I would like to share with you, Dr. Trotz, also, is that, early on, we only have 50% of the paramedics in Hillsborough County that elected to get vaccinated from the very beginning when they had full and free access to it. We had about 20 to 25% of the African American nurses in our hospitals that were choosing and electing to get vaccinated when they had full and free access in the very beginning. And so knowing that we have both a hesitancy problem and an access problem, getting to about 50% for any particular group right now in Hillsborough County has been on par. And that's about where we are because those who are 65 and above only make up 11.6% of the entire population for African Americans here in Hillsborough County, and we're at 7% vaccination rate for overall. So, we're just going to keep getting the word out. We're going to keep educating people, and we're going to create additional opportunities to try and vaccinate people because ultimately, right now the state of Florida is only getting only about a little bit more than 250,000 doses a week. And for a state of 22 million people, that's a very hard thing for me to cerebrally kind of deal with. But we know if we have to work harder to try and get it into the African American community. And by the way, if any of you know Commissioner Myers, Gwen Myers, give her a pat on the back. I want to give Mayor Castor a pat on the back because they've really been working with the county. The county controls the vaccine and where they go and how much comes in and where it goes. Nobody else controls that except the county because they're the only ones dealing with the Department of Health in Tallahassee. And so I thank you for that question, but right now, the closest we are right now is 7%. That's the answer.
Thank you for that. So moving on, Ms. Shelby Pettigrew also asked, what efforts will be made to vaccinate persons who are homeless? And I did want to comment on that, but I know that there's some things USF has been a part of.
Yeah, and again, in about a recent, maybe the past 1 month, we have been very effectively communicating with Dr. Doug Holt and the Department of Health, and they've given us a lot more access to be able to do things. So we have we have a program called Street Medicine.
Street medicine.
Yeah, the street medicine team, and it's primarily driven by medical students. But I know some of our students they participate too, right, Dr. Hill?
We've had pharmacy students.
Yeah,
too.
we have pharmacy, and so they go out and they vaccinate the homeless, and they've been able to do that. And and myself and Dr. Hill and Mr. Green, we were on a call with Pastor Carlos down in the Waimama area, and we just need more vaccine to get onto the market, and we will get to a point that we will be able to vaccinate any and all people that want to get vaccinated. It's just a matter of can we get to them quickly enough. Yeah. So I think that's the best way I can answer. But Dr. Hill, I'm sure you wanted to add something more.
Well, you talked about the street clinic. I was just going to add that another mechanism we've been using on campus to deal with the homeless or provide services has been through the Bridge Clinic,
Oh yeah,
which is
Bridge Clinic. Yeah.
another student-run clinic that's interdisciplinary with a lot of our students from the health sciences. And so I know this past month they had 40 or 50 individuals, and so that was a mix of predominantly Hispanic and Blacks that
Yeah.
received the vaccine, not necessarily homeless, but certainly lower socioeconomic and without insurance and things of that nature. So I will say USF has been extremely attentive to those groups, you know, as much as we can, but you run into challenges, you know, like with refugees and others that may not be documented, and maybe being able to track them, and some of the information it has to go in the Florida Shots database, you know, is hard to be able to get from certain groups, but there are efforts being made. Yes. So Dr. Snead, of course, with the J&J vaccine coming out, going before the FDA, people are wanting to know a little bit. Do you want to tell, I think you shared a little bit about how it works a few minutes ago, but anything else you want to share about that? That was a question from Mrs. Gardner.
Yeah, Mrs. She was asking, how does it work?
Well, she just said, could you give us some information on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine?
Yeah. So again, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you know, for as much concern that people had over, you know, the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was developed with a very similar intention in mind. And let me back up for a moment for the people who have remained with us. Can you imagine right now, just keep in mind, can you imagine if the entire world, if we were still waiting until 2022 or 2023 before we had a vaccine, okay? Now, that would have been even light speed according to where we've been in the past. In a 2-year period to develop a vaccine would have been very quick. But again, we put the investment in 10 years ago. And the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, very, very, very elegant way that they put it together. They took a protein shell similar to a cold virus, and they take a synthetic piece of the messenger RNA code synthetically, and they put it into the capsule and they inject it in, and then that will kind of infect your cell in the way a cold virus would, and it kind of delivers that messenger RNA to your body through that mechanism. And now that they might say, oh, that doesn't sound good. I think it is fabulous. It scientifically very good. I think the body's going to respond very well to, well, it already has. All of the indicators are it has done very well with the clinical trials. And so that's a little bit different how they kind of packaged it. They the Moderna and Pfizer product, they kind of use like a little cholesterol envelope that is kind of bound it and then delivered it. Over here, they kind of use this new protein envelope that's kind of very similar to a cold virus to kind of sneak it into your cell. All very, very good technology, very scientifically sound, and it's really an exciting time to be here to witness everything that we're doing. And by the way, the very same company, Moderna, they have a Zika virus, vaccine that they can't get past phase 3 because we don't have enough Zika people to test it in right now. You know, Merck has an Ebola virus that got approved a couple of years ago. So we're trying to work really hard to find ways to protect people because we know that pandemics are going to continue, especially in the current climate change pattern that we find around the entire world right now. And so that's a very good question. Who asked that question?
Mrs. Tammy Gardner.
Okay, I know I should stick with my job because Dr. Henry, I want you to do your job, but do we have a gift that we can give Ms. Gardner?
We can find something for Tammy Gardner. She works for Bloomin' Brands. So
oh, okay, no. Hey, Ms. Gardner, I tried, but no, we can't
but
have
Tammy,
that. But,
I got you. I'll give you something special because
well, you know what? Hey, like I do with my pharmacy students and medical students when I'm teaching. You get a gold star for the evening.
That'll work.
Okay, gold star for Ms. Gardner.
Yeah, but that does remind me, I do have one more gift to give.
Okay.
And I'll give it to the person with the fastest finger in the chat who can tell me how they can become a member of the Urban League of Hillsborough County. And I'll tell you, it's our website. So just drop in our website to the chat and you've got a $50 dining card to Blooming Brands. So you can choose your favorite restaurant, Outback Steakhouse, Bonefish Grill, Carrabba's Italian Grill, or Fleming's Prime Steakhouse and Wine Bar. So what's the website? Drop it. Yes, I know it's the website. I just need you to tell me what the website is. That's the question. And Elizabeth, you've already won one, so I'm gonna just let you know you are DQ. Let's go to the next person who can tell me what the website is. And that's Perpetua. Look at you, fastest finger. Got it. So Perpetua, you'll be getting $50 to Blooming Brands. Thank you very much.
Well, Dr. Hill, let me go ahead and take the last two questions.
Okay.
We'll kind of wind it up here, but
okay.
Because I got to tell you the reason. Again, I'm in a playful mood tonight. Carl Sylvain, Sylvain. He kind of put out and said, thank you very much. Well, Carl, I need you to know, when I saw you, you reminded me of a person I used to hang out with. That was the cousin of my best friend in pharmacy school. And I said, man, what is he doing here? And I'm looking at you right now. You're on the left side of my screen. And I still don't know that it's not you. Were you in New Orleans back about 25 years ago? Because if you were, we've already been hanging out, my friend. You look just like him. And he was a good guy. So I know you're a good guy too. I know you are. I can tell already, but no, Carl, thank you very much for that very kind compliment. And yeah, we are here to support Urban League, and we're here to support any and all organizations that are reaching out into our Black and Brown community here in Tampa Bay and across the entire state. So thank you. Ms. Elizabeth Shelby Pettigrew, she said, I promised the last question. I thought it would be a good one to end on. Inquired about people who are incarcerated, will they be vaccinated? Yes, they will. Okay, again, it's just a matter of getting more vaccine. The more vaccine we have come on the market, the more people we're going to be able to do. And let me tell you how it grows exponentially, okay? And again, I'm 350 articles in by now, and I read everything. I read as much as I can, but what we're learning from Israel, Dr. Hill, remind me to come back to Israel, okay? Because I'm going to answer and I'm going to forget. Remind me, I said come back to Israel.
Okay.
What we're learning from Israel, and you can kind of witness it right now, the more people you vaccinate, but if you're bringing in the very same amount of vaccine, that means that you're now moving people off of the table that need to be vaccinated, and you can begin to move other people onto that table. So the more vaccine that we give to people, the more opportunity we're actually giving to other people. It's kind of a math equation of how you actually vaccinate an entire population of people. And we found that in Israel, because they have vaccinated an enormously large amount of their population. We're finding the very same thing in West Virginia, of all locations right now. They've done a very good job in terms of vaccinating the number of people, although they're a very small state. Now, let me come back to Israel. People are going to be hearing that, in Israel, after one shot, you are 85% protected. In the scientific community, we are not buying that for exactly the reason I just talked about. Okay, the more you shut down the vaccine and transmissibility potential for the virus, and you keep on giving more vaccine, well, then your numbers are going to continue to look better and better and better over time. So, we have no evidence right now, in my mind, to really support, other than they are doing surveillance of how many people became ill after the vaccine. But if you're approaching herd immunity in a quicker fashion, then yes, less people automatically are going to get infected. And so I'm not buying it yet. I need more evidence. And if I find out even tomorrow, I will come back and apologize. But scientifically, I have a strong opinion about it. I'm not buying it right now. So don't buy into it. We want people to get both shots. That's what has been tested. And overall, the very final thing I will say, and Dr. Hill, I'll turn it back over to you, is that we want, again, we know the danger right in front of us right now. Okay. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know what we're dealing with today. So please take the opportunity to live today. Okay. The opportunity to live today. We don't want people having any long effects. And as we find out more and learn more, we will share all of that transparently with the scientific community. I mean, with all communities, just to make sure. But thank you all so much for allowing me to come and share time with you all. Carl, one day I want you to get vaccinated, so maybe we can hang out. And just maybe we can find out if we happen to be in New Orleans when I was at Xavier University. Oh yeah, do I get my HBCU credit tonight, by the way, Dr. Hill?
I gave it to you when I introduced you. I gave it to you.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure.
I gave it to you.
Thank you to the Urban League. It's been a great evening with very, very intelligent, very good questions. And,
Oh yes.
I'm thankful for the opportunity, really, to be able to go out and go get vaccinated. But Dr. Hill, we turn it back over to you.
And my closing statements before I pass it back on to my sister Shalina is I just want to say, please, take heed to what Dr. Snead has shared with you this evening. And certainly if you have more questions, reach out to us. We'll be glad to answer them. But don't forget to wash your hands, wear your mask, socially distance. And certainly the one message he was saying is when your opportunity comes, please get vaccinated, encourage others to consider it because you want to live. So we can't thank you enough, Mrs. Henry, for this opportunity. You and your team were wonderful to work with. And we just wish all of the efforts that the Urban League is trying to achieve in the community, we wish you success. And we hope that you'll continue to want to work with We Care as we all are invested in the same individuals with the same purpose. So everyone be blessed and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think they've done an amazing job. So virtual round of applause. I do want to recognize We Care, Reach Up, the Urban League of Hillsborough County, and our fantastic speakers tonight, Dr. Angela Hill and Dr. Kevin Snead. You all have been amazing. Thanks also to the committee of folks who helped behind the scenes. Mr. Morgan is always behind the scenes, and our Mr. Lionel Butler for Urban League behind the scenes as well. So thank you all. Don't forget, go to ulhc.org and become a member of the Urban League because there is so much more work for us to do in Hillsborough County. And we will stay partnered with We Care Reach Up and continue the effort to reach out to our communities. But in those other aspects of our programming, there's still so much more to do in education and workforce development, and we won't stop until we make it happen. So appreciate your time, and all my long haulers, y'all have a good night.
Good night.